On a cool fall morning when I was getting ready to go to my office, my cell phone rang. It was my old buddy Huey. It was not long before that his mother had passed away, and he was going through the process of sorting out her items or personal effects, and he came across a file in one of her boxes that was from Mount Pleasant United Church from the mid-1960s. And in that file was all the Sunday school information that she had kept. 60 or 70 students actively participating in concerts, pageants, junior choir, pictures. We remembered then and laughed and shared the stories of a bustling and busy church. I'm sure many of us have similar stories as we think back to that peak of Christendom when United Church membership exceeded 1 million people, when 90-some% of our population found themselves in a worship house on a Sunday morning. My, how times have changed. And so these are common conversations across our nation and within our United Church of Canada. And I've even heard our moderator, Gary Patterson, speak of what it might have been like to be moderator in the 50s and 60s when the moderator's role was primarily to fly back and forth across the country and cut ribbons and bless new churches as they opened. It seemed we couldn't build them fast enough. And if we flash forward to present times, it seems as though we're closing them and selling them off at almost the same pace. And how different that feels, how frightening that is. 2 years ago, as I served as chair of Erie Presbytery, our theme and our focus for conversations was embracing the winds of change. And in that process, we studied the history of the United Church of Canada going back 3 decades, even before union, focusing on some of the conversations that must have happened. And then through the history of United Church up until the present, we came away with it, or at least I came away with it with the thought of 2 constants. One, that God is constant, God is with us in all things. And the other constant is change. While change on its own is something we're unsure of, and something we're leery of, if we look at the long track of history, we'll see that change is very much a constant. And so our reflection and learning through United Church history was God, constant, change, constant. And how can we take this God piece now, this ancient wisdom and gospel, and can we put ancient wisdom and gospel together with creative and imaginative thinking, which are part of change, and allow the call of God to pull us and help us to emerge into the church, into the faith community that we are becoming in these times of change? I believe we can. Let's go on a journey together, my friends. I invite us to go into Matthew's Gospel in chapter 17, where we encounter the Transfiguration story. And here, after a long, busy, fruitful ministry where they were really on a roll, Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up the mountain for a time of getaway. And there Peter witnesses Elijah, Moses, and Jesus and the very light of God shining through Christ. He cannot help but proclaim, "Oh Lord, how good it is! How good it is to be here. Let me build shelter that we can stay forever." And then the thundering voice of God comes upon them and says, "This is my Son with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." And this brought fear to the disciples, and Peter, James, and John hit their knees in fear. And Jesus, as only Jesus can do, placed his hand upon Peter, invited him up onto his feet, and said, "Do not be afraid." And then they went back down off of that mountain, back into the valley. As I reflect on this, I think of our church and the peak of Christendom, and us thinking, "Oh Lord, how good it is to be here." And now, friends, our time is to go down into the valley. We cannot stay here My friends and colleagues of Hamilton Conference, our theme for 2014 and 15 is Let's Go Down into the Valley. Down into the valley where Christ beckons us. Let's go down into that valley where life is lived and we are needed. Let's go down into that valley where surely there are folk seeking relationship with God, struggling to find places of safety and trust where they can experience and explore that. Let's go down into the valley where truth and reconciliation are actually lived out and not just talked about. Let's go down into the valley where we can be a voice for climate change and carbon footprint and enter that conversation with great strength. Let's go down into the valley where sometimes the river floods and sometimes it gets foggy. We can't see where we're going, but we can always trust that God will guide us. Let's go down into the valley where we're going to find fertile soil and flat ground to work on, where new seeds can be planted and new crops grown and harvested, and it's God's work and God's call. Let's go down into the valley together.